Welcome everyone! Today we find ourselves staring into the abyss of the 20th century, peering into the maelstrom that was the First World War. This wasn't just a war, it was a fracture in civilization, a cataclysm that redrew the map of the world and forever scarred the human psyche. We throw around terms like World War now, almost casually. But in 1914, the very concept was almost unthinkable in its scope and scale. How did this happen? How did the world sleepwalk into a charnel house of industrialized killing? That's what we're here to dissect. We're going to pick apart the tinderbox of European politics, the simmering resentments, the tangled webs of alliances, and the fatal spark that ignited it all. Now, to truly grasp the events of 1914, we need to understand the potent force of nationalism that was coursing through Europe like a fever dream. Imagine, if you will, a continent carved up into empires and kingdoms, each one convinced of its own inherent superiority. France, still smarting from its humiliation in the Franco-Prussian War, yearned to reclaim its lost provinces of Alsace-Lorraine. Germany, newly unified and bursting with industrial might, craved its place in the sun, a position of global dominance. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, a patchwork of ethnicities and languages, was a tinderbox waiting to ignite. Within its borders, Slavic peoples, fueled by their own sense of national identity, agitated for independence. This wasn't just about land or resources, it was an age where nations measured their worth in terms of prestige, power, and often military might. This brings us to the powder keg of the Balkans, a region simmering with ancient rivalries and ethnic tensions. Here Serbia, with the backing of a powerful Russia, dreamed of uniting the South Slavs, a dream that put it on a direct collision course with the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This wasn't just a local dispute, it was a fault line that threatened to crack the very foundation of European peace. While nationalism poisoned the well of Europe, the relentless pursuit of empire fanned the flames of resentment. Britain, France, and other European powers had long since carved up vast swaths of Africa and Asia, their colonies supplying raw materials and serving as markets for their manufactured goods. But Germany, a latecomer to the game, hungered for its own colonial possessions. This competition for colonies wasn't a gentlemanly affair, it was a brutal struggle for power and resources. The race to claim territory in Africa, for instance, fueled tensions between Britain and Germany, two nations with increasingly powerful navies and a growing sense of rivalry. Each conquest, each land grab, stoked the fires of nationalism back home, creating a dangerous feedback loop. Every victory, real or perceived, fed the belief that one nation was destined to stand above all others. It was a zero-sum game, and in this atmosphere of suspicion and mistrust, even the smallest spark could ignite a conflagration. Chapter 3. The Iron Dice of Militarism. Imagine, if you will, the great powers of Europe locked in a deadly dance, each one meticulously choreographing its steps, preparing for a war that everyone believed was inevitable. This wasn't paranoia, it was the reality of the early 20th century. Militarism had infected the continent like a virus. Germany, under the Kaiser's watchful eye, poured resources into its army and, perhaps most fatefully, its navy, challenging Britain's long-held dominance at sea. This naval race, fueled by technological innovation and national pride, became a very public, very expensive display of military might. But it wasn't just about battleships and dreadnoughts. Across Europe, armies swelled in size, conscription became the norm, and war plans, intricate and inflexible, were drawn up in meticulous detail. The machinery of war had been assembled, oiled and loaded. All it needed was a spark. Chapter 4. A Tangled Web of Alliances. Now, let's talk about the alliance system, a tangled web of treaties and obligations that turned a regional conflict into a global catastrophe. Picture this: Europe divided into two armed camps, each pledged to defend the other in case of attack. On one side stood the Triple Entente, an alliance forged in the crucible of mutual suspicion and fear, uniting France, Russia and Great Britain. On the other side stood the Triple Alliance, a pact designed to counter the growing might of the Entente, binding together Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy. These weren't just pieces of paper, they were ironclad commitments, and they created a terrifying logic: an attack on one was an attack on all. So when a crisis erupted in a far-flung corner of Europe, these alliances acted like tripwires, dragging one nation after another into the abyss. What began as a local conflict between Austria-Hungary and Serbia would soon engulf the entire continent, and eventually the world, in a maelstrom of unimaginable violence. Chapter 5, Sarajevo, the spark that ignited the world. Sarajevo, June 28, 1914. A seemingly insignificant city in the Balkans becomes the epicenter of a global earthquake. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife, Sophie, are gunned down in their open car by Gavrilo Princip, a young Serbian nationalist. The world is stunned. Austria-Hungary, enraged by the assassination, saw an opportunity to crush Serbian ambitions once and for all. They issued an ultimatum, a deliberately humiliating list of demands designed to provoke a war. Serbia, backed by Russia, attempted to negotiate, but the die was cast. On July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, setting in motion the intricate machinery of war. Russia, honoring its treaty obligations, mobilized its massive army in support of Serbia. Germany, bound by its own treaty with Austria-Hungary, declared war on Russia, and then, when France refused to abandon its Russian ally, on France as well. The dominoes were falling, and nothing could stop the chain reaction. Outro the descent into chaos. These were the interlocking causes, the simmering resentments, the fatal miscalculations that plunged the world into darkness. World War I wasn't inevitable, but the stage had been set, the actors were in place, and the script, written in the language of nationalism, imperialism and militarism, left no room for a happy ending. The world would never be the same, empires would crumble, millions would perish, and the old order would be swept away in a tide of blood and fire. But that, as they say, is a story for another time. Stay tuned, my friends, for more deep dives into the pivotal moments that shaped our world.